Hi, I'm Dan Whitaker. Today I'm here to talk to you about the top 5 problems I see every day in rotational swings. In this video today, we're going to discuss the top 5 problems I see in rotational swings that all you guys are asking the questions in forums, whether it be message boards on Facebook, GolfWorks, could also be questions on YouTube, and also misconceptions I see people trying to apply to their swing every single day. Every single person I see is trying to make their swing as functional as they can, get lots of consistency in there, but these 5 issues that I'm highlighting are really holding them back and hurting the game. I really feel like I can help you a lot with this, so let's have a look at those problems and let's get stuck into them. The first problem I tend to see with a lot of players is they keep the left arm way too attached to the body. Now what I mean by that is, as players are taking it back, they are keeping this arm very, very connected in here, okay? So what this tends to do is it gets the arm too deep halfway back, i.e. they're going too far behind the player in this direction, so the hands are going to end up behind at the top of the backswing. So I've read a lot of players over the years have been saying, put a glove underneath the left arm to help connect the arm to the body. Well, if you've got a very upright backswing where your arms separate away and you're up here in this direction, that as a practice aid would be absolutely fantastic, because it's going to bring you back to somewhere where you need your arms to be. But people continue using that when they've been too steep, and then what tends to happen is they end up keeping this area very, very tight here, and then the arms end up behind the body at this position and end up being a bit too flat. Okay, so what this then causes is lots of issues on the downswing, timing related to try and square the club. Now, a guy who started to rotate the body and the arms together a lot is Justin Rose. So we'd see with Justin Rose that, as we'd see right here, you can see there with Justin that that arm is moving away from the body at halfway back. So what we're tending to see is that that arm has separated away right here. So at halfway back, as the left arm is rotating, it isn't rotating against the body, it is slightly coming off as the left wrist cocks and the right elbow begins to fold down. So the hands are then in line with the center of the body at halfway back. From there, the arms go to the top. Now, there's a very slight gap up here, not a big one, it's quite tight in my extreme armpit area, but my arm is not too tight against my left pec. When I see people getting it across it, and that's lots of issues are going to be caused from there. So number 1 problem to start with, or first issue, is too connected in the left arm. That's got to separate off the chest as you start to move the club up. So the second problem I tend to see with players is getting that wrist set correct going back. Now, because people are trying to rotate and use the pivot, they instinctively think that the arms are trying to go around with the body. Now, they're thinking that the arms are following the body, kind of like this, okay? And what tends to happen is the club gets a little bit too flat here, okay, in this position. And then obviously from there, everything's way too connected, too flat, arms behind. Even if the arms are in front, there's not enough set in the wrists, okay? What we're having is, when you're getting the pivot to drive the swing, or you're rotating, obviously chest starts the movement. From there, the left wrist cocks up like this, okay? That doesn't mean that the arms are then going separate to the body. They're still working with the body and everything's connected going back, but that club has obviously got to work up as that left wrist is moving. You look at the 2 rotational players in the top 3, Jason Day and Rory, they both set the club up beautifully. They do get the wrist set, but they aren't getting the arms really steep up here at the top, okay? They are still getting that wrist set, and then as they're turning, they're beautifully blending the arms to the body and matched it absolutely fantastically at the top. That's really vital for what I would want players to be doing. So the second thing to watch out for is to make sure that you are still letting the club set, but at the top you're matching the arms to the body, and part of it will help with making sure that left arm isn't too connected, as that's a killer move. Third problem I tend to see is turning the hips incorrectly in the backswing, okay? Obviously you're wanting to make sure that you are pivoting and rotating, so the body and the hips are turning back, okay? But I see a lot of players that turn the hips towards the target in this direction right here. Huge issue from there. You can only spin out because you're already too far over that left side. From here at the top, you've nowhere to go. So it means there is a slight back out, which will then mean a bit of spin, which will then lead to potentially chasing through impact or lots and lots of timing issues. So the other major issue when your hips are turning like that is an absolute wrecker for the back, okay? We know that from the 3D and using that MySwing 3D system, that as that pelvis is moving towards the target like this, you can't get the lateral shift that's needed on the way down, okay? And there is one in all rotational swings. There has to be a lateral move, okay? And you can't go lateral there because you're already towards the target, but also you're compressing that lower spine, okay? And it's going to then create a jolting move, and it's going to be poor. At some point, it's going to lead to some lower back problems. Now, I'm not saying that we are swaying across here. What you're looking for is that that right hip stays as close to the line for as long as possible in the backswing, and only towards the top of the backswing does it shift away. We would see that Rory McIlroy is a perfect example of this. Turns the hips, then they start to move towards the target from about 3/4 of the way back. Then from there, it's over the left side, and then everything can rotate through to the finish. If they start moving towards the target too early, okay, which has been an issue with Justin Rose, which is why he's had a slight back issue this year, it can be one of the bits that's actually putting too much torque through that lower spine, and it will create a bit of a spin out through impact. The fourth problem that we see is that players being told to just turn as hard as they can from the top of the backswing, or the other one is just go left, i.e. rotate left. Now, the problem is every golf swing has to have a bit of lateral motion to get over that left side, okay? Depending on where you are at the top of the backswing, depend how much you need, okay? But if you are just turning from the top, I see a lot of players will turn everything from the top. Turn the hips and shoulders, everything together goes from the top. So the problem is when you get this and the hips and shoulders turn together from the top, get a little bit steep right here, okay? And then that's going to lead to having to back up underneath it and flip at impact, okay? Huge issues right there, okay? Because obviously the plane of the shaft is coming down wrong. You're having to back out of it, get an early extension. Again, not great on the back. Lots of timing issues, having to flip at the bottom with the hands to try and square the golf club. Next issue with it is when those hips are spinning, the arms are just dragging behind the body. So when I say dragging behind, they're left behind. So the hands essentially almost end up staying too far behind the body and don't get past the right leg. So at impact, creates a little bit scoopy like this. Okay, see, lots of people are trying their best to rotate and feel like they're creating some lag, but end up being quite flippy at impact, and once again, huge timing issues, lots of problems associated with it. What else you're going to tend to see is, with the guys who just rotate like that, they're not going to just generate as much power as they could, because that arm is being dragged through by the rotation of the body. They're not able to get the correct sequencing. Now, one other bit is, we know that there's got to be a lateral move from the top. We take a look here with Ross Fisher. We can see there with Ross, very much spin the hips, stands up at impact, jumps out the shot, got the early extension and flip that we just mentioned a moment ago. You know, we can see why Ross, when he's been on and his timing was good a couple of seasons ago, he had a fantastic year. We haven't really seen a lot of Ross since. Got a few problems with that. So what we're going to see is, when we have a look at the 3D system, we know that on 3D, there is a lateral shift. They measure the pelvis movement, okay, and it has got to go forwards, okay. You look at the best players in the world, there is a movement forwards, then a rotation, okay. That's when all of the power comes on. If you just rotate hard from the top, you're going to have some problems. Now, that isn't to say that when you own the move, you can't just feel like you rotate from the top, provided you've learnt what the correct sequencing is. You have a look here at Jason Day. We can see there with Jason Day that those hips are going forwards and then unwinding, okay? Now, if you don't have it slowed down the swing, it just looks like a rotation, pure turn, because there's so much speed, but there is a lateral, because that lateral is going to give that time for the arms to get in front, then the rotation can happen to allow the club to square, and that's where the power is going to come from. But if you just turn from the top and spin, the arms are going to be out of position, okay? So I tend to see that you'll get some players who end up with the arms too deep because they're trying to keep this left arm attached with the glove drill like said earlier, and then what will happen is they'll start down, they'll rotate, try and hit it really hard with the body rotation, so they end up flat with the arms behind, then they'll turn, and with short irons you end up shanking it, okay? And that's because the turning movement throws the club or tips the shaft outwards. What we've got to do is, there's got to be a lateral to shallow it, then the rotation to pop the club through. That's the key, okay? You can't rotate just from the top. There has to be a sequence of movement, and it isn't just pure rotation from the top. That's a thing that a lot of people do get wrong, okay? You don't turn everything from the top. It's got to be a sequence. There's a slight lateral, and then the next bit we're going to look at with the other problem is the left arm. I'll go into a little bit of detail for that in a moment. The fifth and final problem that I tend to see is that players don't allow the left arm to move off the body in the downswing. Now, what I'm meaning with that is that a lot of players from the top are just trying to turn and let the arm be dragged through. Obviously that's going to create this flip that I spoke about before, or there's going to be something going on to get the shaft lean. You're going to have to move forwards, get a bit of chase at some point. Those arms aren't going to be in front of the body. Most of all, that left arm's just dragging, that right elbow will be a bit more behind the hip rather than the front part of the hip there, which is where you'd see Ben Hogan and the likes of that type of player really getting it. Now, you have a look at what Ben Hogan did, and he really separated that left arm. So from the top here, that left arm worked down this way. Now I have players who are using their body to rotate, and they're really getting some great data and hitting the ball fantastic, but they feel like they're just using the left arm on its own. i.e., if I just put myself in a little baseball grip position here, and I'm going to only have the club in my fingers of the right hand, so the right hand's going to try and stay there as much as it can, that left arm, as I make my movement, will pull. So it creates this little bit of daylight there. Then, as I rotate in, that left arm will close the gap. So the left arm is separated and then works back in. So the club can actually work left. But the more I let that left arm separate, the further forwards I can get the hands this way. Now if you're a player who drags the left arm behind the body on the way through, gets a bit scoopy, you're probably going to have to feel that left arm moving on its own, because you're going to have to get the independent movement of that arm, because it's obviously at the moment it doesn't have any movement whatsoever. Now that's not to say that I only want the arms to work. I don't. This is going to be getting the body controlling it, but it's a tendency of a problem that we see. So when I look on kinematic sequence, we know that pelvis has a peak in speed, so too does rib cage, and lastly we'd see that left arm has a speed. Well, the guys who leave the left arm end up with no peak of left arm speed. Their left arm is coming down slower than their rib cage, whereas actually what should happen is pelvis decelerates, then upper body or rib cage then as acceleration. Once that decelerates, that will then provide the speed to the left arm. So that's how the movement's working. So you have a look at this video here from Ben Hogan, you can clearly see that that left arm is moving away from the body, and that is getting his arms in front. From there, as he rotates around, we can see how that left arm moves back into the body. So that's key, okay? You've got to let that left arm move away, okay? It cannot stay tight, okay? We know that Danny Willett, the master champion, does some gym work where from here, just with a band, keeps his body in a rotated position and just works the arm like this to get the feeling of how it will separate. Obviously, he doesn't just use that on its own, he works everything. but that has got to separate. That's one of the most important things, okay? If you keep that too tight, you really are going to be struggling. So that's got to get forwards. So we've got those 5 things there. Not every player is going to have all of those, but if you've got one of those things wrong in there, you're really going to struggle truly to have a pivot-driven rotational golf swing where the arms and the club are working in conjunction with the pivot and kind of reacting to it, if you like, rather than what you're going to be doing is you're going to think you're doing it, but you're going to have to do something with the hands consciously to square the club or be out of position because the arms aren't truly working matched to the pivot. Thanks a lot for watching the video. I do hope you found some useful information in there to help your game. If you'd like to contact me, all my details are on the website. Subscribe to my channel if you like what I've got to say. I hope to speak with you again very soon. It's got lots more good content coming forward, including some stuff on the golf course, with it being the summer. Thanks for watching and speak with you soon.